This pilot fails to make the official landing field and then also fails to find a safe landing, crashing into a garden and a building. Today, I'm going to break this video down so that you never find yourself in this position. Are you ready? Here we go.
See ya. See ya.
What's up, everybody? This is Ari in the Air. Welcome back to the channel. Stoked you're here. I'm Ari. I teach high-level paragliding. I'm also the founder of the Paragliding Men's Group. I've made 220 paragliding tutorials here on YouTube because I want to help people be safe, fulfilled, confident pilots. Best way for you to really get these skills is to come be immersed in paragliding with me at the Pine Man, the all-inclusive paragliding clinic here in Oregon, May 23rd through the 29th. Limited spots available. They're selling out pretty fast. Links is in the description below. I'll tell you more about that as we go on here. Let's get into today's video. And honestly, this video went pretty viral on the internet, which I think was one of the hopes of its creator. And I'm going to break it down for you today. We're also going to look at the track log that led to this and show you what happened and how you can avoid it to stay safe in the future. Okay. So he's flying over Interlaken, Switzerland, which is one of the most flown places in the world. This video has created a lot of conversation around access and a lot of kind of drama. I'm not really going to delve into that because that's not what's useful here. What I do want to talk about is like, how do you assess a paragliding site to know whether or not you can fly there? How do you know you can make it to the landing field? And then when things change in flight, how do you take those changes and adapt to them in flight to keep yourself safe, right? So here we're seeing this pilot is now really, really low over town, a dense urban area with no LZs. The LZ in question over a 3-story building there, he's obviously not going to get there. Tandems above him, obviously going to get there, right? So what does he do? He turns downwind here. Okay, so now he's going downwind and his ground speed picks up considerably. He looks to the right. What was he looking at? I'll show you in just a second. And he flies low downwind. There's a river here and he's got his hands on the risers, holding onto the bottom of the brake toggles, low over the trees. He's going to crash into the trees. No weight shift, crash into a building, into the garden, and slams onto the ground, his glider hitting leading edge onto the house. Okay, this is a total nightmare and was so easily avoidable a million times. So before I talk about the bailouts, let's talk about just like, how do you know you're going to make the glide? How do you know that you're going to make the glide from any given launch? I'm going to show you this flight first. This is X Contest. This is a recording of his flight. Okay, so the launch is called Amesbull, and I've never been there, but I can tell you that it looks like from the flight that this is the LZ here where you see Interlaken, and this is a very common launch, and it is, you see his XC distance here is 3.6 kilometers. So let's extend it by 400 meters and say that you need a 4-kilometer glide to make it to the landing. The start was at 1,334 meters. The landing was at 571 meters. So that's about 700 meters vertically. So if you want to calculate what kind of glide you're going to need, it's 4,000 meters divided by 700 meters, right? This is your run over your rise. If you want a 10-to-1 glide, it's 10,000 meters over 1,000 meters. Okay, so this shows that you need 5.714 to 1 glide. You need almost a 6 to 1 to make it to the LZ just in totally still air. So that means that if you've got headwind, if you're on a student glider, that's tight. Anyone who's ever done a comp knows that if you are expecting to get a perfect 6-to-1, a 6-to-1 is like, even though gliders boast like a 10-to-1 glide, yeah, but you're flying through active air. If you're flying into a headwind, that's going to change it radically, especially if you're on a low performing glider. Wow, so many factors here. And if you know that you need a 6-to-1 glide to make the main LZ, it's like, that means that you launch and you fly exactly the best possible route until you have the landing field on 1-to-1 glide. Looking at this track log, the pilot flies out. This is the correct direction to be flying, and then makes a right 90, only flying not that far, and honestly doesn't lose a ton of altitude here. But in hindsight, once you know that he lands short, then any deviation from the exact best glide that you could possibly get, the best line you could take, is an error. It might have been an error for him to launch on that day in the first place, okay? But then any deviation from best glide, the perfect line to get to the landing field, is an error. That is an error right here. And you see another error here as he turns kind of downwind. Now, as you see, he's flying along this terrain. I can zoom in on this a bit. He's flying along this terrain. The tandems hugged the terrain for way further, and he actually pushes kind of out into the valley. I think that his best bet was to stay on the terrain here and to tuck his legs in, get best glide, best possible glide. Okay. Also noting, look, back here is nothing but landing fields, and he was upwind of them. So once he was here, it was still very possible for him to turn around and go to landing fields that were available. But he persists and he tries to fly out this way. He doesn't make it. He turns downwind and he crashes into this thing. So let's go back to the video and I'm going to show you where the relevant decision points are that you're going to have to make some decisions, and how you should be thinking about cross-country landings, because even though this is like a sled ride in an urban area, this hypothetically could have happened in any given place on the far side of an XC flight. So at this point right here, when we start the video, this landing field that I'm circling right here, he probably needs like an 8-to-1 or a 9-to-1 to make it. So at this point right here, already, if I was in his shoes, I'd say, I'm not making that landing field, especially going into the wind, especially I've received some, I've flown through some sink. This has been a shitty glide. And honestly, to risk it over a totally urban area, not happening. Absolutely not happening. I'm turning around right fucking here. I'm going to fly backwards downwind. I'm going to find a huge landing field and I'm going to fly there and land there. No question about it. Okay. But let's assume that I got myself into this position through sync. Okay. Now look at this LZ. This is the official LZ again. Now he needs 10-to-1 to make it here. You're not making 10-to-1 into the wind on a freaking A glider or whatever. So what options does he have at this point? Well, obviously you want to land into the wind. So there might be this field right here to the right. That looks like an option. There's also this field over here to the left. Okay. These are both into the wind. They're not behind, this one's not behind horrible objects. This one might be a little bit more rotary because there's 3-4-story buildings in front of it. But at any rate, it's better than what he ends up doing. So the lesson I want to teach you is that when you're talking about landing fields, you need to make decisions early and you need to make them conservatively. If you don't think you can make it, then you need to make a different plan immediately and stick to it. So at this point, if I don't think I can turn around and fly downwind to the landing fields that I flew over, I am going to pick a landing field that I know I can reach and I'm going to commit to it. So at this point, I would turn left and I would just sit here and do figure eights over the river and the boardwalk until I was low enough to turn on final and land right here. Okay. That looks like a better option to me than this landing field, this one, because this one has buildings all around it. So I think it's easier, safer here, but this is also an option better than what he does. Okay. So the fact that he pushes so far to try to make it to the landing field, now at this point, he needs a freaking 12-to-1 to make it here. Definitely not going to get that. But even now that I see this, this is my eyes go to this, stuff it into this parking lot right here. These are all really dangerous options. If you're a novice pilot, this is a total non-option. You have to be an absolute gangster to stuff it into here and walk away happily without ruining your gear, your legs, or worse. But here's the thing. He flies way too far into this. this, and then he turns downwind, and watch. As he flies past us, we get a really good look of this hypothetical landing field, right? There's some big bushes, there's a couple buildings, but in general, this is a good landing field. And right here, you'll watch as we push play, he looks at it to the right. He's like, that's a landing field, but he's too inexperienced yet to know that he needs to commit to this, that he needs to turn around 180 and make a safe landing. It's going to be relatively slow. He's got a lot of wind. He's got a lot of headwind. That's one of the main reasons he didn't make the landing field in the first place. It is the reason that he lands going so freaking fast downwind. He is so lucky to have walked away from this, to have not like hurt someone else or damaged property seriously. This is like incredible luck. Okay, so the other thing that I'm thinking here as he goes downwind and he's already passed like a reasonable option is that this right here, the shallow water, if you have good experience, turn around, fly towards these trees, land in knee-deep water. Obviously, moving water is horrible landing option, but I kind of still think it's a better landing option than what he ends up doing of just crashing into buildings. At this point in the flight, you can tell that he's total deer in the headlights, has no control over the glider, no authority, doesn't know what he's doing. Oh, this is horrible. So hard for me to watch. Wingtip into the building, eats shit into the garden. But luckily, as you scroll back, you see that his flight is a perfect tangent. So like he comes in with very little vertical airspeed and he just like slides in to this garden, crashing into the garden and then sliding to a stop, while his glider smacks leading edge into the building and he stops just before crashing into the wall. Literally, look at that. He's 30 centimeters from the wall. If he would have smacked it, if he would have been 5 more meters in and smacked in at full speed, he'd be dead. So much luck and so little skill and so little preparation, so little mentorship. It's just kind of embarrassing. This is kind of stuff that is so easily avoidable in paragliding, and I'm glad that he's okay. Okay. As for the access and stuff that they created drama on the internet, I won't even touch with a 10-foot pole. But I will say that there were many options available to him. He should have turned around long ago. If you are in a tight landing area, you have to make decisions early and you have to do it conservatively. And when you do it, you have to commit to it, because your decision tree in paragliding is like, a commenter described something I've talked about for a long time, which is that when you launch, it's basically a decision tree going out into infinity. There are so many options available to you in any given flight. And as you start sinking, your decision tree is upside down now. It's inverse. And the further and further you get towards the ground, you get less and less and less choices, less and less options. And that is the same thing that you see here. When he was higher up, he had many, many options. And the lower he gets, the less options he has, the less options he has. So you have to make these kinds of decisions safely and conservatively early in your decision tree, because soon you will have no options. And as my base jumping mentor, Andy Lewis, always told me, he says, if you don't find a landing field will find you. Don't let a landing field find you non-consensually. Get mentorship, ask questions. Don't lone wolf it in life or in paragliding especially. Otherwise, you're going to end up on my channel. And I'd rather you end up in my clinic than on my channel, all right? So glad this pilot is okay, walked away from this without any injury and didn't fuck things up too bad. Hope this is useful. Check out the link in the description about the Pine Man if you really want to learn how to paraglide and have my mentorship and instruction. I would love to have you out. Links in the description. Thanks for watching. See you on the next episode.